Okay, according to a new report by The Hill's John Solomon, the FBI may have been bamboozled, willingly, by multiple versions of that infamous Russia dossier. Now, why does this matter? Well, the revelation comes from none other than FBI agent Peter Strzok, who wrote an email to FBI leaders when BuzzFeed made the dossier public. Remember, in early January 2017, he said, "I have the PDF via iPhone," comparing now. The set is only identical to what McCain had. It has differences from what was given to us by Korn and Simpson, meaning 3 different versions. Count them. That likely means the FBI obtained all 3 different versions of the dossier from different sources: John McCain, far-left Mother Jones reporter David Korn, and Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS. Republican Congressman Jim Jordan asked Strzok about the email earlier today.
Are there 3 copies of the dossier as evidenced by what you said in this email?
Sir, to be clear, I want to talk about this email. I want nothing more than
all
answer your
you
question
want, but you're not talking about it. You're not answering my questions. Are there 3 copies?
3 copies of what?
The McCain copy, the BuzzFeed copy, and the one that you got from Korn and Simpson.
Sir, I can tell you I never had contact with Fusion, with Mr. Simpson, with Mr. Korn.
Here to explain the significance of this development, stay with us. It's very important. John Solomon himself, the opinion contributor at The Hill, and Rudy Giuliani, who's listening to this going, this can't be really happening. John, why does this matter that there are 3 different versions of this salacious dossier floating around at different times that are clearly attacking Donald Trump?
So in counterintelligence, one of the most important things for agents to avoid is what's called circular reporting. Are we getting the same intelligence from different people, and it's not real? It's just an echo chamber. So they fire Steele. Remember, he had inappropriate contact
in October of 2016. He shouldn't have talked to reporters. They had to nix their contact.
That's right. He's out of there.
Really reliable. Thanks.
But somehow Steele's document keeps finding its updates walking into the FBI through these emissaries. And, you know, John McCain, they gave it to him. He's a willing participant because he's not a big fan of President Trump after the election.
No, we need to talk more about the McCain angle here. I mean, I mean, he's, God bless him, he's suffering, but that is, no one wants to talk about that. Well, we have to talk about that.
We know from the testimony of Glenn Simpson that Glenn Simpson set that delivery up, that Glenn Simpson made sure that John McCain's people got that. That's in the Senate Judiciary testimony. Now you got David Korn, who wrote a story in October, then decides to give the document to the FBI in November after he's already written the story. That doesn't make sense. Nothing wrong in October if you're trying to authenticate it. You've already written about it. Why do you give it to the FBI? And then you got Glenn Simpson, who we heard today might have used Bruce Ohr to get the document. So now that whole chain of custody has been disrupted, and you got people feeding in around and creating circular intelligence.
One investigator told you the following. I love this line. The dossier and its related dirt was on a circular flight path aboard a courier service called Air Clinton, and the FBI kept signing for the packages. That's chilling. Rudy Giuliani, your reaction?
Isn't that called collusion or conspiracy to gin up a totally inappropriate, totally illegal wire based on national security? And doesn't it, with no investigation, doesn't it taint the entire Russian probe? How much of that information from that wire ended up being in the Russian probe? How much is it presently infecting it? And why doesn't Manafort lawyers move to dismiss the indictment for taint? There'll never be an indictment of the president, so we'll never get a chance to do that. But we will sure want to investigate that in the counter report that we write to whatever kind of hatchet job may be done on the president, which I hope doesn't happen.
I want to share another part of this exchange with Congressman Jordan today. This was one of the best parts of the hearing. Let's watch.
But the FBI did get documents from Bruce Ohr.
Yes, sir.
Did they get the dossier from Bruce Ohr?
My direction from the FBI is, I may tell you, the FBI received material from Mr. Ohr.
Now,
Congressman,
this is amazing. This is amazing. So Nellie Ohr,
as you are.
Nellie Ohr works for Fusion, works for Glenn Simpson, and she's giving documents.
Regular order, please. Let us bring the director of the FBI to answer those questions. The gentleman cannot answer.
Well,
He's asked and answered.
The American people.
He's asked and answered. He cannot.
Sheila Jackson-Lee should have been thrown out of that hearing. We want to hear the answer to that question. You notice how when they're starting to get to the truth, the Democrats will start talking over the witness. Well, that's not cool. I mean, I like Sheila Jackson-Lee. She's a fun person. I like her. But they can't do that. But this was happening all day long at this hearing. The moment they got close to something, like talking over it. Well, why don't they let them answer the question? John, here, I think people hear dossier. They're like, oh, what does that mean? Yeah. It's important because, as Rudy Giuliani said, without that dossier, the Carter Page surveillance, the kickoff of this investigation began even though they had not interviewed any witnesses. They got to that point today. He didn't remember or wouldn't say if he interviewed one person to justify the beginning of that Russian probe.
Take a look at something I wrote about a week ago where you see Pete Strzok writing an email saying we now have a pretext, an excuse to look at Carter Page. And then he puts the FISA together. What is the evidence? It's the dossier paid by Hillary Clinton and a story leaked to Michael Isikoff that is based on the dossier. It's circular reporting. The entire beginning of this investigation violates all the norms of intelligence reporting.
Rudy, does this get in the head of the president when he's over there doing this really important
No. I talked to the president this morning. He's perfectly focused on what he's doing now in London. One of the things we're deprived of with President Trump is the argument that this interferes with the president. But it does interfere with the presidency, and that's a disgrace. Mueller should be ashamed of himself. Those Democrats trying to protect that liar, Strzok, today should be ashamed of themselves. And every FBI agent I know wants to see this guy drummed out of the bureau, and they want to see him not paid. Now, the problem with the dossier is, okay, it led to fake news. We got to deal with fake news. But it also led to a wiretap, and it led to a national intelligence wiretap. And it led to evidence that came out of that. And it led to evidence that was in the minds of Strzok and other people when they continued the investigation of Trump into Mueller. So how much of it is infecting the investigation today? We may never know, which is why I think the investigation is totally phony.
When I hear insurance policy, every time I read that,
what does that
just
mean?
That one line over. And today it was like, well, no, these are texts. You're taking... He kind of like blew it all off.
But what does insurance policy mean? It means I have a certain set of things I'm going to do to stop this guy as a last resort. Now, the mere fact that it didn't leak or didn't kill him doesn't mean that it wasn't illegal. It was clearly illegal, and that's why he's lying about it.
Do you believe the president, in his meeting on Monday with Vladimir Putin, will he be able to be as open, effective, as focused with our relationship with Russia, with all this stuff out there floating?
Well,
that's what's always bothered me about this.
There's a lot of differences between him and Vladimir Putin, and the best thing is to try to iron them out. We're probably not going to do that. Here's what the two men know. They never colluded with Donald Trump, right? Whatever the Russians did, they didn't collude with Donald Trump. And the only crime committed is the hacking. Well, nobody thinks that Donald Trump was involved in hacking. He wouldn't know how to do hacking, nor would he do it. So once the information is hacked by the Russians, if that's the case, then everybody else is entitled to play with it. If they give it to you, you can report it on Fox.
John, last word.
I'll say one thing. When the mayor was talking about the colluders, I think there's one other part. My own profession gets used in a way that I think is very concerning in this. You see reporters being part of the circular exchange, delivering documents as part of this circular reasoning. I think when we all step back, my profession needs to take a look at what we did and how we may have been played in all of this. I think that's another important part of this.
John Solomon.
Well, thanks, John. Thanks for your work. The Hill does a great job.
Very proud to be there. Thank you.
All right, stop complimenting.